Right, guys, so before Donald Trump goes, he's going to be pardoning people of sentences and setting them free. He's already done it to lots of people. He had a big list last month. He's got another 100 or so he's going to be announcing, I think, between today and tomorrow, before he gets the boot anyway. So this is a list of people that he's just letting out of jail, okay? Roger Stone, former Trump campaign advisor and confidant. Roger Stone was convicted in November 2019 on 7 charges related to the Russian investigation. Bear with me because I'm just reading off my phone. The Republican lobbyist was pardoned by Mr. Trump last week after President commuted his sentence in July, a week before he was due to report to federal prison. Stone had been sentenced to 40 months, which he will no longer serve. Michael Flynn, the former National Security Advisor, pleaded guilty after lying about his conversations with the Russian ambassador to the US. Flynn was the only White House official to be convicted by Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into the Russian interference in 2016 election. Links between the Trump campaign and Russian officials and the president's alleged obstruction of justice. Paul Manafort, the president's one-time campaign chairman, was pardoned after having his sentence commuted earlier this year. Manafort was found guilty of 8 financial crimes, including filing false tax returns on tens of millions of dollars in Ukrainian political consulting income. Alex van der Zwaan, a Dutch lawyer, was sentenced to 30 days in prison for lying to investigators during the Mueller investigations. The president has repeatedly taken aim at Mueller's investigations, which considered Trump's campaign ties to Russia, and convicted aides, including van der Zwaan, in the process. Sorry if I say some of these names wrong. George Papadopoulos wasn't a character in EastEnders before. George Papadopoulos was the second person convicted in the Russian investigation, which handed the former Trump campaign advisor a 14-day prison sentence. He pleaded guilty to lying about conversations he had with Russians who had told him that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton, Mr. Trump's 2016 Democratic opponent. Duncan Hunter, a former Republican congressman from California, was sentenced to 11 months in prison after he pleaded guilty to stealing $150,000 from campaign funds to spend on vacations and personal luxuries. He was to begin his sentence in May 2020, but had it pushed back to January 2021 due to the pandemic. Now he's pardoned. Chris Collins, another Republican included in Mr. Trump's pardons, was sentenced to 2 months imprisonment after he admitted to helping his son and others dodge $800,000 in stock market losses when he passed on information about a pharmaceutical company to them. The former New York congressman was among the first to endorse Mr. Trump for president, but he was. Steve Stockholm, the former Republican congressman from Texas, was convicted of misusing charitable funds of $775,000. The White House said that the stockman had contracted coronavirus while in prison. He served more than 2 years of his 10-year sentence and will still be required to serve time on supervised release, along with paying about $1 million in restitution. But he's still pardoned. Nicholas Slapman, Paul Slough, Evan Liberty and Dustin Hurd. The 4 men were contractors working for the US State Department in 2007 when they opened fire on unarmed civilians in a crowded square in Baghdad, the Iraqi capital. They killed 14 civilians, including 2 children, one who was just 9 years old. The massacres led to lengthy prison sentences. They are now pardoned. Alfonso Costa, a former Pittsburgh dentist and close friend to housing security Ben Carson, was convicted of healthcare fraud. He pleaded guilty and served 2 years on probation, along with being ordered to pay $300,000 in fines and restitution. Alfred Lee Crum, the 89-year-old, pleaded guilty to helping his wife's uncle illegally distill moonshine in 1952, when he was 19 years old, he served 3 years of probation and paid a £250 fine. The White House said Crum of Oklahoma had maintained a clean record, had 4 children, and been married for nearly 40 years. He also attended the same church for 60 years and regularly participated in charity and fundraising events. Now, there is a proper one. That is a real pardon. This happened in 1952. He was just making a bit of booze. Yeah. And the White House has pardoned him. And back then he got a $250,000 fine. Philip Esteforms. Philip Esteforms, a wealthy Miami businessman and former healthcare executive, was responsible for one of the biggest healthcare fraud schemes in the US history, worth $1 billion. His prison sentence was commuted by the president on Tuesday, but other aspects of his sentence, including supervised release and millions in restitution, remained intact, but he's out. Otis Gordon, the pastor convicted of drug possession charges, was issued a full pardon, supported by Trump ally and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Weldon Angelos. Weldon was 24 years old when he was given a 55-year prison sentence in 2004 for marijuana dealing whilst in possession of weapons. It was his first conviction. Utah Senator Mike Lee had petitioned former President Barack Obama to grant clemency to Angelus, a music producer. He was instead released from prison after receiving a sentence reduction in court. So some of these are fair, but some of these are like, what? They're just your friends. They stole, they lied, they committed fraud, they did tax fraud, yeah, and they're all being pardoned. Would this happen to the layperson? If anyone in the USA committed tax fraud, you guys tell me in the comments, what happens to you guys when you do stuff like that? All these guys being pardoned, there's so many different names, yeah? And a lot of them are his friends and things that people have done. And it's, you know, there's just such a big list here. It's really sad to read, because he's just letting all these people off, and I think it's not fair, and I actually think it's quite disgusting. He's going to release another 100 names before he leaves office, so we'll see who else has been pardoned there, how many of his friends have been let off there, how many politicians are being let off the hook by Trump before he goes. Is this his way of draining the swamp, letting all the criminals out? Peace out.